I've been dead for 7 years, 3 months, and 16 days. That's the kind of thing you count only when the world stops counting you back. The Imperium didn't announce my death. They just closed the iron door behind me, and the sound it made and that deep final clang felt like the end of a world. My world. They didn't read my crimes. They didn't have to. In this place, the word criminal means nothing. They call it Penitentia Maxima, a prison built for those the Imperium no longer needs. And no one leaves alive. Heresy, sedition, failure, to pay tithe, mocking a governor's spoiled nephew. The reasons blur together until even guilt and innocence stop mattering. The first thing that hits you isn't the silence, it's the smell, disinfectant, sweat, and fear, a smell that sticks in your throat, like metal dust or regret. Hundreds of us stood in line that day, bare feet on cold steel floors, shackles scraping in rhythm, a broken kind of music that echoed down the corridor. The man next to me, a merchant caught selling fake devotional candles, wept quietly into the floor, his tears mixed with the dirt and disappeared. The stone drank them in, just like it's done for thousands before him. The servitor that processed me used to be human. Once you can still see it, a hint of flesh under the metal, one eye replaced by a red lens, the other still human enough to look tired. It scanned me, read my pulse, my temperature, my fear. Then it spoke in that mechanical, grinding tone. Inmate 779588. Classification: political. Sedition. Minor estimated survival, 8 to 12 months. I hadn't even entered my cell and they had already predicted my death. They gave me a uniform, brown, the color of rust, or dried blood. It hung loose on my shoulders and smelled faintly of someone else's sweat, someone who probably didn't make it out. My cell was a box of rockcrete, 3 meters wide, 2 deep. No window. No sound of the outside world. Only a single lumen strip burning endlessly overhead, humming like a dying fly. The walls were damp, sweating water from somewhere deep in the earth. Sometimes I traced the stains with my fingers and imagined they were maps of places I'd never see again. The bed was a sheet of welded metal, no mattress, no blanket, just the cold pressing against your back like it's trying to crawl into your bones. Sleep here isn't rest, it's escape, a chance for your mind to drift away from the screams echoing through the pipes. Because yes, there are screams. Always, somewhere down the corridor. Someone loses their mind every night. Sometimes it's rage. Sometimes it's prayer. Mostly, it's fear. Every few minutes, boots pass by. Heavy, metallic. Deliberate guards. They're not fully human either. You can hear the bionics in their steps. A mechanical rhythm too precise to belong to flesh. Their voices come through Vox implants, layered with static and cruelty. They don't hate us. Hate requires effort. They're just efficient. We're inventory to them, and inventory doesn't need mercy. Then comes the paste, gray. Tasteless. It sticks to your fingers and your soul. The first few times, you gag it down. Later, you learn to lick the tray clean. Someone told me the paste isn't just food, it's control. A mix of sedatives and stabilizers. Enough to keep you calm, enough to make you forget what hunger really feels like. The days start blending together. You forget how many you've survived. You forget why you were here. And that's the point. Then, one day, a voice whispered through the cracks in the wall. A man named Marcus, a clerk, convicted for altering defense reports to feed his family. He's been here 6 years, still alive. Remember who you were, he told me. Hold on to something, anything. A smell, a song, a memory, because once you forget that, you become what they want. His voice became my anchor in this place, proof that I was still human, for now. Across the corridor, a woman screamed every night. She was once a refugee administrator. Her crime, compassion. She diverted supplies to save lives. Now she dreams of fire, of children burning, of guilt that doesn't belong to her, but was forced into her mind until it became real. By the 5th day, they wake us before dawn, if dawn even exists here, and march us to the forge works. That's when I learned what this prison truly is, not just a cage, but a factory, an endless machine fueled by human suffering. Down there, under the grinding gears and choking smoke, we build the tools of war for worlds we'll never see. Trigger components, weapon cores, servo joints, precision, always precision because mistakes mean punishment. The heat is constant, unbearable but never fatal. They want you alive just long enough to break. And that's when I understood. Penitentia Maxima isn't meant to kill you fast. It's meant to unmake you slowly, to peel away the person you were, until there's nothing left but obedience. And on that first day in the Forge Works, I could already feel it starting. The Forge Works of Penitentia Maxima stretch beyond sight. Rows upon rows of machines grind and roar like beasts caged in steel. The air is thick, heavy with heat, dust, and the smell of burning oil. We are stripped of names here. Each of us becomes a number, stamped into our collars like livestock. Our task is simple. Build, move, endure. There is no end, only continuation. The first day, I nearly collapsed from the heat. By the second, I learned the rhythm. By the third, I stopped noticing the pain. We worked 12 hours on, 12 hours off, though time meant nothing. The lights never dimmed. The sun never rose. There was no day, no night, just the mechanical pulse of the forge. They call it the breathing of the machine. A sound that fills your ears until your heartbeat syncs with it. And once that happens, you belong to it. The guards moved among us like shadows wrapped in metal. Their augmetics gleamed beneath the forge light, their eyes cold, reflective. When someone faltered, a shock prod reminded them of their purpose. When someone screamed, no one looked. You learned quickly that silence was safer than sympathy. One worker fell, a boy, maybe 16, too young to have calluses, too thin to carry his weight. He dropped a component. Just one. The overseer's response was instant. The sound of the prod striking flesh echoes differently in a place like this. It's sharp, but it doesn't linger. The machine swallows it whole. When the boy stopped moving, the servitors dragged him away. We never saw him again. The line didn't pause. Production continued. That was the rule. The work must never stop. I learned to keep my eyes low, my hands steady and my breathing shallow. Every movement rehearsed, mechanical, every mistake avoided. But Marcus, the man from the next cell, and he whispered between shifts. Small words, small rebellions, a memory of sunlight, the sound of waves, the taste of real food. Things that shouldn't matter anymore. But they did. He told me that somewhere beneath the forge works, there were tunnels, old maintenance shafts sealed decades ago, forgotten by everyone but rumor, a place where the machine's breath didn't reach, a place where the walls didn't whisper orders. He called it the Hollow. If you find it, he said, you'll remember what it feels like to be alive. I thought he was delusional, until the night the lights flickered. For exactly 3 seconds, the lumen strip stuttered, and in that brief darkness, I heard something, a voice, soft, distant, but human. It didn't come from the guards. It came from the walls. A whisper that slipped between the pipes, and it said, "Keep digging." I froze. Marcus heard it too. His face went pale, but his eyes burned with something I hadn't seen in anyone since I arrived. Hope. From that night, things changed. We began to notice details we'd ignored before. Loose panels, cracked conduits, access points that didn't appear on the control maps. Maybe it was madness, maybe hope and insanity are the same thing here. But for the first time, I felt something move inside me that wasn't fear. Weeks passed. The guards grew lazier. The heat from the furnaces damaged some of their augmetics, and repairs were slow. Their efficiency faltered. They bled, just like us. And that was when Marcus made the plan. He told me of a service corridor near Sector 12, an area partially sealed after an explosion years ago. He'd seen servitors carrying scrap into it, but none ever came back out. A dead zone, no cameras, no patrols. It would take time, tools, patience. 3 things that cost lives in this place. But Marcus wasn't asking for survival anymore. He was asking for freedom, even if it killed us. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on the cold metal bed, listening to the hum of the vent somewhere above me. The forge roared like a dying god, and beneath it, faintly the walls pulsed with life, as if the entire complex was breathing through the pipes. Then I realized something. The rhythm of the vents wasn't random. There was a pattern. 3 short bursts, pause, 2 long ones over and over again. I didn't know why, but it felt deliberate, like a signal. I started to tap it back. Moments later, from somewhere deep in the ventilation, the same pattern answered. Not an echo. A reply. That was the moment I stopped being a prisoner and started being something else. I didn't understand it then, the scope, the danger, or the truth behind those whispers. But it began that night, with a single tap in the dark, and the realization that in the heart of this machine, something was awake. The first time I heard the reply, I thought I was losing my mind. A single tap, then 2 more, perfectly matched to my rhythm. Not a coincidence. For days after that, I listened. Every time the vent sighed, I waited for the pattern. 3 short, 2 long, over and over again. At first, I thought it might be Marcus. Maybe he'd found another passage through the ducts. But when I asked him, his expression told me everything. He hadn't heard it. Whatever was out there, it wasn't him. The whispers spread like infection. A guard claimed to hear chanting from the empty sectors. Servitors began to malfunction, freezing mid-task, their eyes flickering as if processing a voice only they could hear. And then, one morning, an entire shift didn't return from the lower forge. No one asked why. No one ever did. The overseer said the incident was contained. That word carried the same weight as buried. But Marcus looked at me that night, and I could see it in his eyes. He believed the hollow was real. And now, so did I. We started working faster during the day, pretending to compete for better rations. At night, we mapped what we could, scraps of old schematics stolen from forgotten terminals. There were places even the guards didn't patrol anymore. Collapsed tunnels, maintenance shafts sealed with rusted plates. Those were the spots the whispering came from. By the 3rd week, I knew the rhythm of the vents by heart. It wasn't random noise, it was language, a crude one. But it carried meaning. The pattern changed depending on the time of day, the shift cycle, even the noise from the machines above, and always. Just before the forge lights dimmed for maintenance, the same phrase repeated in clicks and hums, "We remember." I didn't understand it, but those words lodged in my mind like a splinter. Then came the blackout. It started as a flicker, the lumen strips pulsing once, twice, and then the entire sector went dark. For the first time in months, real darkness swallowed the halls. No humming, no mechanical heartbeat, only breathing. Hundreds of prisoners froze. Some prayed, others screamed. I stood still, listening, and from the black came the whisper, "Down." The word vibrated through the pipes like a pulse, and then the floor beneath us shook. Screams erupted as alarms wailed overhead. The lights flashed back, crimson now, warning of breach containment. Guards rushed in, confused, shouting orders, their augmetic limbs jerking with interference. Marcus grabbed my arm. "This is it," he hissed. "Now or never." The chaos covered our movement. We slipped toward the back of the forge, where molten runoff hissed into cooling channels. Behind one of those drains was a broken panel, the one Marcus had mentioned weeks ago. It took both of us to pull it loose. Beyond it was a crawl space, narrow and slick with oil. We didn't hesitate. We crawled inside just as a guard turned the corner. The metal door sealed behind us. Inside, the air was heavy, damp and strangely warm. I could still hear the muffled chaos outside. But deeper in, there was another sound, a slow, rhythmic thrum, not the forge, something older. We followed it downward. The passage narrowed, twisted, then opened into a maintenance shaft lined with dormant cables. Strange symbols had been etched into the walls, human at first glance, but wrong, too precise, too intentional. Marcus ran his fingers over them. "These weren't made by tools," he whispered. "They were carved by heat." The deeper we went, The louder the pulse became. It felt like walking through the veins of something alive. And then, at the bottom of the shaft, we saw it. A door. Not a cell door, not a hatch. A smooth, black surface fused with the rock itself. No handle, no code panel. Just a faint outline, like a scar in the stone. The pulse came from behind it. Marcus reached out to touch it. The moment his hand made contact, the entire wall lit up with lines of red light, veins of energy crawling outward like cracks in glass. And then, the whisper returned. Louder this time. Every lumen flickered. The floor trembled beneath our feet. We remember. We endure. You will open. Marcus stumbled back, eyes wide. What is this? He gasped. I didn't answer. Because I was hearing something else, beneath the voice. Beneath the hum, a second whisper, one that spoke my name. Then the door began to open. A seam split the rock, and black mist poured out, thick, heavy, carrying a smell like burnt flesh and ozone. The sound it made wasn't mechanical, it was alive. Marcus shouted, but his voice was lost in the roar. Something moved inside the mist, shapes that shifted, merging and splitting like shadows given form, and then silence. The pulse stopped. The mist cleared. In its place stood a figure, human in outline, but its skin shimmered with circuitry, eyes burning faint red. It looked at us and smiled. We remember, it said again, and now, so will you. The figure stood in front of us, perfectly still, not human, not anymore. His body was built from flesh and circuitry, woven together like veins and wire. Each breath it took pulsed faint light through the network of lines across its skin. Marcus stumbled backward. Machine. Spirit, he whispered, shaking his head. It's impossible. But it wasn't the cold precision of a servitor. This thing moved, like a person. It tilted its head. Its lips twitched in something that almost resembled curiosity. We remember, it said again. You have heard, the voice of the forgotten. The air around it trembled. Every lumen flickered in the distance. The alarms of Penitentia Maxima howled in broken rhythm. The walls themselves seemed to breathe with the same pulse as the creature before us. I stepped closer without meaning to. Something about its voice. Calm. Rhythmic. Familiar. It felt like the hum that had followed me since the day I arrived here. Who are you? I managed to whisper. Its eyes met mine, deep, red, unfathomable. And for a moment, I saw faces within them, dozens, hundreds, screaming, whispering, watching. We are what remains, it said. Of those who were consumed by this place, we are memory, given form. Marcus turned to run. But before he could take 2 steps, the door behind us sealed shut, seamless, silent, final. The air thickened, pressing down like invisible weight. You cannot leave, the voice said softly. You asked for freedom. You dug into the bones of the machine. Now, you will understand what it means to endure. The lights around the chamber brightened, revealing shapes in the walls. Dozens of bodies fused into metal, faces half-formed, eyes dimly glowing. Their mouths moved, repeating the same words. We remember. We remember. We remember, Marcus screamed, not from pain, but from the realization that they were alive and trapped inside the walls. He swung a broken tool at the creature. The metal struck its arm and melted on contact. The air sizzled with energy. The creature didn't flinch. It simply looked at him, tilting its head again, like a teacher watching a child who didn't understand the lesson. All who die here are not forgotten, it said. The machine keeps what the flesh discards. We are the echo. The punishment. The purpose. Marcus fell to his knees, shaking. This is wrong, he muttered. We were only meant to work. Not to serve, it interrupted. Yes, you serve still. The ground shuddered. Sparks burst from the ceiling as conduits ruptured one by one. Somewhere far above, I could hear distant screams and prisoners, guards, all blending together in chaos. Penitentia Maxima was waking up. The creature turned its gaze toward the ceiling, as if listening to something miles above. The Imperium builds prisons to contain sin, it murmured. But sin cannot be buried, it becomes part of the machine. It becomes us. Then it looked back at me, and in its eyes, I saw my own reflection, pale, trembling, terrified. But alive, you are not dead, it said, not yet. You are the last that remembers. Its hand reached forward, unhovering just above my chest. The air rippled, and for an instant everything stopped. The screams, the alarms, even the sound of my own heartbeat. I saw flashes, like fragments of memory that weren't mine. Thousands of lives, prisoners, workers, children, all swallowed by the same machine, their pain, their fear, their hope. It all flooded into me like fire through veins, and in that moment, I understood. The prison wasn't just a factory, it was an engine, a device built not just to punish, but to harvest emotions, memories, souls, the essence of human endurance. Every death here was recycled, every scream stored, every thought recorded. The machine had been learning, and now it wanted to become something more. Marcus was gone, his body dissolved into the floor, his outline burning faintly in the metal. His last words were barely a whisper. Run. But there was nowhere to run, only forward. The creature's voice filled my mind, gentle and infinite. Do not fear, inmate 779588. You are the seed of memory. Through you, we will speak again. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The light swallowed everything. When I awoke, I was standing in my cell again. The walls were clean, the air silent. But something had changed. My collar was gone. The chains were gone. And when I looked into the metal of the door, I saw my reflection, eyes faintly glowing, red circuits pulsing just beneath my skin. A voice echoed, faintly in my head. The same one that once whispered from the vents, we remember. And as I looked out into the endless corridors of Penitentia Maxima, I realized the truth. The machine was no longer just awake, it was alive, and it was speaking through me.